Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world that smelled like cherry coke and rubbing alcohol, where the pharmacist knew your name and your grandmother's arthritis medication, and where a simple trip to buy aspirin could turn into an hour-long social event complete with a grilled cheese at the counter. We're talking about your local drugstore in the 1950s, a place so different from today's fluorescent pharmacy aisles that you might not even recognize it as the same species of store. Before we dive in, take a second to like the video and subscribe if this kind of gentle time travel speaks to you. And a huge thank you to Sarah, who suggested this topic in the comments last week. You all keep this channel alive with your ideas, and I'm genuinely grateful every time one of you reaches out. It means the world. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and what your own memories of old drugstores are like, or if you're too young for that, what you wish you could have experienced. And hey, the channel is now live on Spotify too, so if you want to take these stories with you on your commute or your evening walk, there's a link in the description. Now get comfortable, dim the lights if you can, maybe turn on a fan for that soft white noise, settle into your favourite spot because we're about to spend some time in a place that was equal parts pharmacy, soda fountain, community centre, and somehow, accidentally, a museum of mid-century American life. Because tonight, we're asking, what did it really feel like to push through those glass doors on a Saturday afternoon in 1955? What sounds greeted you? What smells? How long did people linger? And why? What could you buy that would shock us today? What happened at that long marble counter, and why did it feel so important? What did the pharmacist's white coat mean in a world before chain stores swallowed everything? And could you right now survive an afternoon in a 1950s drugstore without your phone, without your hurry, without any of the efficiency we take for granted? Well, congratulations. You've just woken up and it is 1955. The morning sun slants through your kitchen window. Somewhere down the block you hear the milkman making his rounds. Your mother hands you a list, a dollar bill, and tells you to stop by the drugstore on your way home. The day is just beginning. You stand on the sidewalk outside Miller's Pharmacy, the sun warm on your shoulders, and for just a moment you hesitate before pushing through those heavy glass doors. The bell above the entrance rings out, a cheerful two-note chime that announces your arrival to everyone inside. It is not a sensor or a buzzer. It is an actual brass bell, polished to a soft glow, and it has been greeting customers this same way since before you were born. The doors themselves are solid, framed in brass that matches the bell, with handles worn smooth by decades of hands. The glass is thick, slightly wavy if you look at it from the right angle, imperfect in the way handmade things are imperfect. Through it you can see the interior of the store slightly distorted, like looking into a memory that has not quite solidified yet. There is movement inside, shapes and colours, the suggestion of people and activity, but nothing clear until you commit to entering. You place your hand on the warm metal handle and push. The door resists just slightly, heavier than modern doors requiring intention. It swings inward with a whisper of hinges, and the bell responds immediately, bright and welcoming. The sound carries through the store and you see heads turn just slightly, not staring but acknowledging. The soda jerk glances up from wiping the counter. The cashier looks over from the register. An older gentleman at the magazine rack raises his eyes for just a moment before returning to his reading. This is not surveillance. This is greeting. In 1955, the sound of the bell means possibility. It means another neighbour has arrived, another familiar face, or perhaps someone new to learn about. It means business, yes, but it also means company, conversation, connection. The bell is not announcing an intrusion, it is announcing an arrival. You let the door close behind you, and it settles with a soft, cushioned thump. The bell giving one final quiet tinkle as the mechanism stills. The weight of the outside world, The heat of the sidewalk, the noise of passing cars, all of it stays outside. You have crossed a threshold into a different kind of space, quieter, cooler, more intentional. The transition is immediate and complete. Outside is bright, hot, hurried. Inside is dim, temperate, patient. The drugstore does not rush you. It does not blast you with music or assault you with fluorescent urgency. It simply waits, calm and steady, ready to serve you when you're ready to be served. You take a few steps forward, your shoes making soft sounds on the wooden floor, and you pause to let your eyes adjust to the softer light. The bell behind you has already gone silent, but its echo lingers in the air, a gentle reminder that you have entered a place where your presence matters, where someone will remember that you came in today, where the simple act of opening a door and stepping inside is still worth noticing. And in that moment, standing just inside the entrance, with the smell of the store beginning to reach you, and the sounds of the soda fountain drifting from the back, you understand something important. This door, this bell, this threshold, they are not just functional, they are ceremonial. They mark the boundary between the outside world and this small, essential corner of community life. And every time that bell rings, it is playing the same two notes it has always played, a song that says, "Welcome, we have been waiting for you, come in and stay a while." The moment you step inside, the smell hits you, a layered, specific perfume you will carry in your memory for the rest of your life. It is medicinal, but not harsh, sweet, but not cloying, somehow both clinical and comforting at once. There is cherry syrup from the soda fountain, rubbing alcohol from the pharmacy counter, fresh newsprint from the magazine rack, and beneath it all, the faint vanilla warmth of the wooden floors that have been swept and mopped 1,000 times. It is a smell you cannot find anywhere in the modern world. Drugstores today smell like air conditioning and plastic packaging, sterile and anonymous. But this is alive. This is specific. This belongs to this place and no other. If you were blindfolded and led through a dozen stores, you would know this one instantly, by scent alone. The cherry syrup is the sweetest note, rising from the soda fountain where the jerk is mixing a Coke for someone at the counter. It is not artificial cherry, not the chemical approximation that will dominate in decades to come. It is real fruit syrup, thick and dark, poured from glass bottles that have been refrigerated until the liquid moves slowly like honey. The smell is bright and happy, the olfactory equivalent of a smile. Beneath it, sharper and cooler, is the rubbing alcohol. The pharmacist has just finished cleaning his workspace, wiping down the marble counter where he compounds prescriptions, and the astringent scent drifts forward, clean and serious. It reminds you that this place, for all its social warmth, is also a place of medicine, of healing, of trust. The alcohol smell is a promise. We are careful here, we are clean, we take your health seriously. The newsprint adds a papery, inky layer, slightly dusty, faintly metallic. The magazine rack near the window is fully stocked, fresh issues delivered this morning, and the smell of new print mingles with the older, mellower scent of the newspapers stacked beside the register. It is the smell of information, of stories, of the world beyond this small store brought inside in folded pages. And then there is the wood, the floor, the shelves, the cabinets behind the pharmacy counter. All of it is wood, old wood, wood that has absorbed decades of footsteps and spills and sunlight. It has been treated with oil and wax, polished and maintained, and it gives off a warm, almost sweet aroma that anchors everything else. It is the smell of permanence, of craftsmanship, of a building that was made to last. You breathe it all in, this complicated perfume, and something in you relaxes. The smell tells you that you are safe here, that this is a place that has been tended with care, that the people who run this store take pride in what they do. It tells you that time moves differently here, that there is no rush, that you're allowed to linger and browse and simply be. There are other notes too, subtler ones. The faint leather smell from the stools at the counter, the clean cotton scent of the pharmacist's freshly laundered coat, the hint of peppermint from the candy jars near the register, a trace of perfume from the cosmetics counter, floral and powdery, the slight mustiness of old cardboard from the storage room in back. All of it blends together into something that is more than the sum of its parts. A signature scent that will follow you home in your clothes, that will cling to the paper bag you carry, that will rise up unexpectedly years later when you least expect it, triggered by some random combination of smells that your brain suddenly recognizes, and you will be transported instantly back to this moment, standing just inside the door of Miller's Pharmacy on a sunny afternoon in 1955, breathing in the particular perfume of a world that no longer exists. Your eyes adjust to the softer indoor light, and the first thing you notice, the thing everyone notices, is the counter. It stretches nearly the length of the store, a long expanse of white marble veined with grey, cool to the touch, polished until it reflects the overhead lights like a frozen river. This is not just a counter. It is the heart of the drugstore, the place where everything important happens. The marble is real, not laminate or formica or some modern composite, but genuine stone, quarried and cut and installed with care. It is heavy, permanent, expensive in a way that announces commitment. The owner of this drugstore did not choose this counter because it was cheap or convenient. He chose it because it was beautiful, because it was durable, because it sent a message that this place was serious, that it would be here for a long time, that it could be trusted. The veining in the marble is subtle, grey lines wandering through the white like rivers seen from an airplane, no two sections quite alike. In some places the veins are thin and delicate, barely visible. In others they pool and swirl, creating small storms of darker stone. You could sit here for an hour, tracing the patterns with your eyes, finding shapes and stories in the stone the way children find shapes in clouds. The surface is cool when you rest your hand on it, cool in a way that feels intentional, medicinal, like the stone itself is offering relief from the heat of the day. It is perfectly smooth, polished to a glassy finish that catches the light and throws it back in soft glows. There are no scratches, no chips, no signs of careless use. This counter is maintained with the same care a museum might give to a sculpture. Along its length, the counter is divided into zones, each with its own purpose. At the far left, nearest the pharmacy, is the area where prescriptions are picked up. A small section with a wooden inbox where filled orders wait in white paper bags, each one labelled with a name in careful handwriting. The pharmacist stands behind this section, elevated slightly on a platform that gives him a view of the entire store, a general surveying his domain. Moving right, you reach the service area, where the soda jerk works his magic. Here the counter is backed by an elaborate system of dispensers, levers and taps, all chrome and porcelain, gleaming like the control panel of a spaceship. There are syrup pumps with white ceramic handles, each one labelled in flowing script. Chocolate, vanilla, cherry, strawberry. There are carbonated water taps that hiss softly when opened. There are metal containers holding ice cream, their lids propped open to reveal the pale curves of scoops within. In the middle section, the counter widens slightly, creating a space for customers to stand while they wait, while they chat, while they simply exist. This is the social zone, the place where neighbours meet and gossip flows, and the small dramas of community life are acted out in quiet conversations. There is always someone standing here, leaning against the marble, relaxed and unhurried. At the right end of the counter, nearest the door, is the register area, where purchases are tallied and money changes hands. The marble here is slightly more worn, touched by thousands of hands reaching for change, setting down purses, steadying themselves as they dig through pockets. But even the wear is elegant, a soft patina that adds character rather than diminishing beauty. The whole length of the counter is lined with chrome-legged stools, red vinyl seats worn soft by countless customers, each one spinning freely on its base with a faint squeak of metal. They are spaced evenly, close enough for companionship, far enough for privacy. You can sit alone at this counter and be perfectly comfortable, or you can sit beside a stranger and strike up a conversation without it feeling forced. This counter is not furniture, it is architecture. It is a stage, a gathering place, a monument to a particular way of doing business that values craft and beauty and the quality of human interaction. It is the reason people come here instead of buying their aspirin at the grocery store. It is the reason the drugstore is more than just a drugstore. It is the solid, beautiful, enduring centre of everything. You approach the counter and there they are, a row of chrome stools with red vinyl seats, each one bolted to the floor and topped with a small round cushion that swivels when you sit. You choose one near the middle, not too close to anyone, not too far from the action, and you settle onto the seat with a soft creak of metal and leather. The stool is heavier than you expect, solid and substantial. The chrome base is thick, tubular, anchored to the floor with bolts that have been there since the store opened. The metal is cool to the touch, polished until it shines, reflecting the overhead lights in curved distortions. There are no scratches, no rust, no signs of neglect. Someone polishes these stools regularly, probably the soda jerk at the end of each day, wiping them down with a cloth and a bit of chrome cleaner until they gleam. The seat itself is a round cushion of red vinyl, the colour of a fire engine or a valentine, bright and cheerful. The vinyl is slightly cracked in places, fine lines spreading across the surface like the wrinkles around an old person's eyes, marks of age and use that somehow make it more appealing rather than less. The cushion has a slight give when you sit, not soft like a couch, but padded enough to be comfortable for long stretches. You can tell people spend time in these seats, not just the 5 minutes it takes to gulp down a Coke, but real time, half an hour, an entire afternoon if the company is good. The seat swivels freely on its base, a smooth rotation that requires almost no effort. You push off slightly with your foot and spin slowly to the left, then back to the right, testing the mechanism. It is perfectly balanced, perfectly maintained. There is a faint whisper of metal on metal, not a squeak, but a sigh. The sound of well-oiled bearings doing their job. Children love this feature, of course, spinning until they are dizzy, until their parents tell them to stop, until the soda jerk gives them a look that is half stern, half amused. The height of the stool is fixed, designed for the average adult, which means children have to climb up, hoisting themselves with both hands on the edge of the counter, legs dangling above the footrest. But the stool accommodates them anyway, patient and steady, holding them safely while they sip their root beer floats and feel, for a moment, like grown-ups. The footrest is a chrome ring that circles the base of the stool about a foot off the ground, a place to rest your feet, to brace yourself, to anchor your body while you swivel and chat and exist. It is slightly scuffed from thousands of shoes, dulled in spots where heels have rested most often, but still solid, still functional. You place your feet on it now and feel the coolness of the metal through the soles of your shoes. Around you, the other stools are occupied in varying degrees. 2 seats to your left, an older man in a fedora reads the newspaper, his coffee growing cold beside him. His stool is completely still, planted, as if he and the seat have reached an understanding and neither will move until the paper is finished. 3 seats to your right, a young couple shares a milkshake, their stools angled slightly toward each other, knees almost touching, their straws crossing in the tall glass between them. The arrangement of the stools creates a kind of democracy. There is no hierarchy, no head of the table, no position more important than another. The person at the left end has the same status as the person at the right. Everyone faces the same direction, toward the mirror and the soda jerk and the elaborate machinery of the fountain. Everyone has the same view. Everyone is equal. And yet each stool also offers a kind of privacy. You can sit here, surrounded by people, and still feel alone if you want to. You can stare into your Coke and think your thoughts, and no one will bother you. Or you can turn slightly, catch someone's eye, and suddenly you are in conversation, part of the larger fabric of the afternoon. The stools do not require reservation. They do not cost extra. They are simply there, available, first come first served, waiting for the next person who needs a place to sit, a moment to rest, a cold drink, and maybe, if they are lucky, a chance to be part of something larger than themselves. You settle in, adjusting your weight, finding your balance, and you realize that you could stay here for a very long time. Behind the counter stands a young man in his 20s, wearing a crisp white paper hat folded into a flat-topped triangle, a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, and a long white apron tied at his waist. He's called a soda jerk, and he takes his title seriously. The hat is made of stiff paper, creased and folded with precision, sitting on his head at a slight angle that manages to look both jaunty and professional. It is not decoration. It is uniform, a symbol of his position, a declaration that he is a craftsman, a maker of small pleasures, a guardian of the fountain. The paper is bright white, clean, replaced each day at the start of his shift. There is something about that fresh hat each morning, crisp and unmarked, that sets the tone for the day ahead. His shirt is white cotton, the collar open, the sleeves rolled precisely to mid-forearm, exposing tanned arms that move with practiced efficiency. The fabric is slightly worn but impeccably clean, ironed with care, probably by his mother or his girlfriend or maybe by himself, standing over an ironing board in his small apartment, pressing the creases flat because appearance matters here, because this job, for all its humble trappings, is skilled work and he knows it. The apron is long, falling almost to his knees, tied with strings that wrap around his waist and tie in front. It is canvas, heavy duty, designed to withstand splashes and spills, and it bears the faint evidence of today's work. A smudge of chocolate syrup near the hem, a damp spot from the soda water, marks that will be scrubbed out tonight when he cleans up. The apron has pockets, and from these he produces a rag for wiping, a pen for taking orders, a small notebook for keeping track of tabs. His hands are his most important tools, and he uses them constantly, reaching for glasses, grabbing ice, working the syrup pumps, spinning the metal cups under the milkshake mixer, wiping down the counter in smooth circular motions. His movements are fluid, economical, the result of doing the same tasks hundreds of times until they become second nature. He does not fumble, he does not waste motion. He knows where everything is without looking. His face is friendly but focused, the expression of someone who enjoys his work but also respects it. When he makes eye contact with a customer, he smiles, a genuine smile that reaches his eyes, not the glazed customer service smile of someone who has checked out mentally. He remembers names, he remembers orders. He knows that Mrs. Henderson always wants extra cherry syrup, that Tommy Miller prefers his Coke without ice, that the businessman who comes in at 3 always asks for coffee, black, no sugar. The soda jerk is not just serving drinks. He is performing a kind of theatre, a show that happens dozens of times each day but never loses its appeal. When he makes a milkshake, he does not hide the process. He places the metal cup under the mixer, the beaters spinning so fast they blur, and he holds the cup steady while the contents thicken and rise, climbing toward the rim with mathematical precision. At the exact right moment, he releases the cup, lifts it, and the mixer sputters to silence. Then he pours the milkshake into a tall glass with a flourish, scraping the last bit from the cup with a long spoon, topping it with whipped cream from a can, adding a cherry from a jar, and sliding it across the marble counter with the confidence of a man who has never missed. He calls out orders to no one in particular, announcing what he is making in a kind of shorthand language that is half code, half poetry. 1 Coke, cherry, vanilla malt, extra thick, lime Ricky, easy on the lime. His voice carries through the store, not shouting but projecting, making sure everyone knows the fountain is alive, that orders are being filled, that the world is proceeding as it should. This job will not make him rich. He earns perhaps $40 a week, enough to get by, enough to save a little if he is careful. But the job gives him something else: respect, skill, a place in the community. He is not invisible. People know him. Children look up to him. Adults trust him. He is the soda jerk at Miller's Pharmacy, and in 1955 that means something. You glance up at the mirror behind the counter, and there, written in careful white paint, is the menu. Not printed on laminated plastic, not backlit on a digital screen, but hand-lettered directly onto the glass in a script so elegant it looks like an invitation. The letters are perfectly formed, each one a small work of art. The capitals are tall and flourished, the lowercase letters flowing in smooth curves that connect and separate with rhythmic precision. Whoever painted this menu, probably the owner or perhaps a sign painter hired for the job, took their time, using a thin brush and a steady hand, applying the paint in layers until each word stood out clearly against the silvered glass. The menu itself is simple, organised into categories that run from left to right across the mirror's width. Sodas are listed first, each flavour spelled out in full: cherry, vanilla, chocolate, lemon, lime, strawberry. The letters are all the same size, giving no preference, no hierarchy. Each flavour is equal, each one worthy of consideration. Next come the ice cream sodas, which are different from regular sodas because they include a scoop of ice cream floating in the carbonated sweetness, melting slowly, creating swirls of cream that transform the drink as you consume it. The menu lists them plainly: chocolate, ice cream soda, vanilla, ice cream soda, strawberry ice cream soda. No abbreviations, no cutesy names, just honest descriptions of honest pleasures. Then the milkshakes, which are called milkshakes on the menu. 2 words, old-fashioned and specific. The flavours are the same as the ice cream sodas, but the price is different, slightly higher, reflecting the extra ice cream and milk that goes into each one, the time it takes to blend them thick and smooth, the skill required to get the consistency exactly right. The sundaes are listed next, each one a minor production: hot fudge sundae, butterscotch sundae, strawberry sundae, pineapple sundae. The menu does not describe what comes on each sundae, because everyone already knows. Everyone has ordered them before, or watched someone else order them, or heard about them from a friend. The sundae is not a mystery, it is a ritual. At the far right of the menu, almost as an afterthought, are the food items, though calling them food feels too grand. Grilled cheese, egg salad sandwich, ham on rye, tomato soup. The prices are modest, pennies and nickels and dimes, lunch for less than $1 including the tip. Below each item is its price, painted in smaller numbers, practical and clear. A cherry Coke is 10 cents, a milkshake is 25, a sundae is 35, a grilled cheese is 30 cents. The numbers feel almost abstract now, too small to be real, But in 1955 they are perfectly reasonable, fair compensation for goods received, a price both the customer and the owner can live with. The paint on the mirror is slightly worn in places, faded where the sun hits it each afternoon, chipped near the edges where the glass has been cleaned too enthusiastically over the years. But the words are still readable, still clear, still doing their job. This menu has been here for years, maybe since the store opened, and it will be here for years more until the drugstore closes or the owner decides it is time for something new, which, judging by the way things are going, will not be any time soon. You study the menu for a long moment, even though you already know what you want, because studying the menu is part of the experience, part of the pleasure. The act of choosing, of considering your options, of weighing one flavour against another is its own small joy. And the menu, painted on the mirror in that beautiful script, turns the mundane act of ordering a drink into something that feels special, considered, almost ceremonial. You decide on a cherry Coke, and the soda jerk nods once, already reaching for a tall glass from the rack beneath the counter. He does not ask for clarification. He does not punch buttons on a screen. He simply begins the ritual, a small performance you will watch with quiet fascination. The glass he chooses is clear, slightly tapered, holding perhaps 12 ounces when full. It is spotless, polished until it shines, cool from being stored in the refrigerated cabinet below. He holds it up briefly, checking for spots or smudges in the overhead light, a gesture so quick you almost miss it, then sets it on the counter in front of him with a soft clink against the marble. First comes the ice. He reaches into the ice bin with a chrome scoop, the metal already beaded with condensation, and he scoops out a generous portion. Not too much, not too little, just enough to fill the glass 2/3 of the way. The ice cubes tumble into the glass with a series of satisfying cracks and clinks, settling against each other, already beginning to glisten with moisture. These are not the uniform machine-made cubes of the future, perfectly square and eerily consistent. These are hand-cut, irregular, each one slightly different, chipped from a larger block of ice that sits in the bin beneath a white cloth. Next he reaches for the syrup. The cherry syrup is kept in a glass bottle with a chrome pump on top, the whole apparatus looking vaguely medical, like something a doctor might use to dispense medicine. The syrup inside is dark red, almost burgundy, thick and glossy. He positions the glass under the pump and presses down twice, each pump releasing a measured amount of syrup that falls in slow ribbons, pooling at the bottom of the glass, coating the ice cubes closest to it in brilliant red. Now comes the carbonated water. He moves the glass to the soda tap, a chrome fixture with a long lever that he pulls toward himself with a practiced motion. The water hisses as it flows, pressurized and eager, splashing against the ice and syrup, creating an immediate reaction. The syrup begins to swirl, climbing the inside of the glass in crimson tendrils, mixing with the water but not completely, creating layers of colour that fade from deep red at the bottom to pale pink in the middle to clear at the top. The hissing continues for perhaps 5 seconds, the soda jerk watching the level rise, his hand steady on the lever. When the glass is nearly full, he releases the lever and the flow stops immediately. No drip, no waste. The surface of the drink is alive with bubbles, tiny carbonated explosions that pop and fizz and rise in a continuous stream. He reaches for a long metal spoon, one of a dozen hanging from a rack behind him, and he slides it into the glass, stirring slowly, deliberately, moving the spoon in a circle that brings the syrup up from the bottom and distributes it through the liquid. The colour transforms as he stirs, the dark red mixing with the clear water until the entire drink glows with a uniform cherry pink hue, bright and cheerful and impossibly appealing. The stirring takes perhaps 10 seconds, no more. When he's satisfied, he withdraws the spoon, taps it once against the rim of the glass to shake off the excess liquid, and sets it on a small towel beside the sink. Then he reaches for a straw, a paper straw with red and white stripes spiraling around it like a barber pole, and he slides it into the glass, positioning it at a slight angle, the top end resting against the rim. Finally, with both hands, he lifts the glass and places it on the marble counter directly in front of you, centering it carefully, making sure it is stable, making sure the straw is accessible. His hands linger for just a moment, a final check that everything is as it should be, and then he steps back, nodding once, satisfied. The whole process has taken perhaps 30 seconds, maybe less, but it did not feel rushed. It felt measured, deliberate, like a craft being practiced by someone who has done it 1,000 times and still cares about getting it right. He did not make a cherry Coke. He created one, assembled it from its component parts with skill and attention, and now he has presented it to you as if it was something precious. And in this moment, in this place, it is. As he works, the sounds of the soda fountain surround you, a gentle symphony of chrome and fizz and ice, the hiss of carbonated water under pressure, the clink of a long silver spoon against glass, the soft pop of a bottle cap being pried loose, the low mechanical hum of the refrigeration units beneath the counter. These are the sounds of 1955, as specific to this moment as the smell of cherry syrup or the feel of cool marble. They create a soundscape that is layered and textured, alive in a way that modern spaces with their piped-in music and electronic beeps can never quite achieve. This is mechanical music, the rhythm of well-maintained equipment doing its job, and it is strangely soothing. The hiss of the soda water is the most prominent sound, a pressurized rush that cuts through all the other noise whenever someone orders a drink. It is insistent but not unpleasant, like steam escaping from a radiator or air leaving a tire, a sound that announces itself and then stops cleanly when the lever is released. In the moment of that hiss, everyone in the store knows that someone is being served, that the fountain is active, that the drugstore is doing what it was made to do. The clink of spoons is constant, a metallic percussion that punctuates the afternoon. Long spoons stirring drinks, short spoons scooping ice cream, spoons being set down on the marble counter, tapping against the stone with a bright, clean note. Spoons being dropped into the sink, clattering against each other in a small pile of silver. The soda jerk moves through his work with a steady rhythm, and the spoons provide the beat. The pop of bottle caps is occasional but satisfying, a sharp little crack followed by the soft hiss of carbonation escaping. Some sodas come pre-mixed in bottles, root beer and ginger ale and cola, and these must be opened with a bottle opener bolted to the side of the counter, a simple lever device that catches the cap and pries it loose with a quick upward motion. The sound is nostalgic even now in 1955, because everyone has heard it 1,000 times, at home, at picnics, at parties, and it always means the same thing. Something cold and sweet is about to be consumed. Beneath all the other sounds is the hum of the refrigeration units, a low, steady drone that you stop noticing after a few minutes, but that is always there, always working. The units are tucked below the counter, out of sight, keeping the ice frozen and the milk cold and the ice cream at the perfect scoopable temperature. They are old machines, built before the war, and they hum with the mechanical confidence of technology that has proven itself reliable. This is not the whine of a struggling compressor or the click-click of a failing motor. This is the sound of machinery at peace with its purpose. There are other sounds too, smaller ones, grace notes in the symphony. The squeak of a stool as someone shifts their weight. The rustle of paper as the soda jerk unfolds a new napkin to place beneath a glass. The soft splash of a scoop of ice cream being dropped into a waiting bowl. The metallic whir of the milkshake mixer spinning at full speed, blending and aerating, creating something smooth from something solid. And threading through all of it, connecting the mechanical sounds to the human ones, is the sound of voices. Conversations at the counter, quiet and relaxed. The soda jerk calling out an order, a customer thanking him. Laughter from somewhere near the magazine rack. A child asking his mother if he can have a sundae. The pharmacist speaking in low, reassuring tones to someone picking up a prescription. These voices do not compete with the machinery. They coexist, blending into a soundscape that is neither too loud nor too quiet, neither chaotic nor sterile. You sit at the counter, your cherry Coke in front of you, and you listen. Not actively, not straining to hear, but simply allowing the sounds to wash over you, to settle into your awareness, to become part of the experience of being here. The sounds tell you that this place is alive, that it is functioning, that dozens of small processes are happening simultaneously to create the simple pleasure of a cold drink on a warm afternoon. And later, years later, when you remember this drugstore, you will remember the sounds as clearly as you remember the taste of the cherry Coke or the feel of the marble counter. You will remember the hiss and the clink and the hum, and in those sounds you will hear the echo of a world that moved at a different pace, that valued craft over speed, that understood that the way something is made matters almost as much as the thing itself. He sets the glass in front of you with a careful, practiced motion, the ice still crackling, the foam still rising, a paper straw already standing at attention. You wrap your hand around the cold glass, feeling the condensation bead against your palm, and you take your first sip. The cold hits you immediately, a shock that travels from your lips to your throat to your chest in a straight line of icy pleasure. The drink is colder than you expected, colder than seems possible, and for a moment the cold is all you can register, a pure sensation that blanks out everything else. Then the flavour arrives, sweet and tart at the same time, the cherry syrup both artificial and real in a way that is difficult to explain. It tastes like cherries, yes, but also like childhood, like summer, like every good memory you have ever associated with this particular combination of sugar and carbonation and fruit. The sweetness is pronounced but not cloying, tempered by the sharp bite of the carbonated water, the two elements balancing each other perfectly. The texture is complex, a mix of liquid and bubbles and tiny fragments of ice that have already begun to chip off the larger cubes. The carbonation dances on your tongue, thousands of tiny pricks of sensation that make your whole mouth feel alive, alert, engaged. This is not a smooth drink. It is effervescent, active, insistent, demanding your attention with every sip. You pull the straw away from your lips and the world comes back into focus. The sounds of the drugstore, the feel of the stool beneath you, the sight of the marble counter and the mirror beyond. But something has shifted. You are no longer an observer. You are a participant. You have crossed another threshold, from customer to consumer, and now you are fully, completely present in this moment. You take another sip, slower this time, letting the drink linger in your mouth before swallowing. The cherry flavour seems stronger now, more pronounced, as if your taste buds have adjusted to the intensity. You notice other flavours too, subtle notes that were hidden in the first shock of cold. A hint of vanilla, perhaps from the syrup or perhaps from your imagination. A slight metallic tang from the carbonated water, clean and mineral. The faint sweetness of the paper straw, which is already beginning to soften and bend where your lips touch it. The glass is sweating in your hand, moisture running down the sides in tiny rivulets that pool on the marble counter. You set the glass down carefully, watching the water spread out beneath it, creating a small lake that reflects the overhead lights. The soda jerk sees this, and wordlessly slides a paper napkin across the counter. positioning it beneath your glass without interrupting your experience, without making you feel like you've done something wrong. You lift the glass again and the napkin sticks to the bottom briefly before falling back to the counter, already darkening with absorbed moisture. The glass feels lighter now, partly because you have drunk a few ounces, but mostly because your hand has adjusted to the temperature, no longer shocked by the cold, accepting it as normal. The ice cubes shift as you drink, settling lower in the glass, and you can see how the syrup has stained them, turning the clear ice faintly pink. Some of the cubes have cracked from the temperature change, splitting into smaller pieces that float near the surface, melting faster than their larger neighbours. In a few minutes the drink will be more diluted, the flavour softer, the cold less intense. But right now, in this moment, it is perfect. You take another sip and you realise something. This is not just a drink. It is an event. It is a pause in your day, a moment of pure, simple pleasure that asks nothing of you except that you be present for it. You're not thinking about your chores. You're not worrying about tomorrow. You're simply here, in this drugstore, on this stool, drinking this cherry Coke that was made just for you by someone who knows how to make it properly. The first sip is always the best, people say, and maybe that is true. But each sip that follows has its own character, its own small revelation. The second sip is colder, because your mouth is prepared. The third sip is sweeter, because you have learned to anticipate it. The fourth sip is more relaxed, less urgent. And by the fifth or sixth sip, you have settled into a rhythm, a gentle back and forth between thirst and satisfaction, between wanting and having. That could continue for as long as the glass holds liquid. You're halfway through your cherry Coke now, and the afternoon is still young. You glance to your left and right, noticing the others who have claimed their own spots along the counter. An older man in a fedora reads the newspaper, one hand wrapped around a cup of coffee that has probably been refilled 3 times. A teenage couple shares a milkshake, 2 straws leaning toward each other like a promise. The older man is perhaps 60, perhaps older, his face lined and weathered in the way that speaks of a life spent largely outdoors. His fedora is grey felt, slightly stained around the band where his fingers have gripped it countless times, removing it when he enters buildings, replacing it when he leaves. He wears a short-sleeved white shirt, the collar open, and dark trousers held up by suspenders. His newspaper is spread on the counter before him, sections folded and refolded as he works his way through the pages, pausing occasionally to take a sip of coffee or to shake his head at something he has read. His coffee sits in a heavy ceramic mug, white with a faint hairline crack running down one side. The kind of crack that has been there for years and will be there for years more without ever quite breaking the mug completely. The coffee inside is black, no cream, no sugar, the way men of his generation drink coffee, strong and unapologetic. The soda jerk has refilled it at least twice without being asked, simply appearing with the pot when the level dropped below half, topping it off with a quick pour and a nod. The man reads slowly, carefully, occasionally licking his thumb before turning a page, a gesture so habitual he probably does not know he is doing it. He is in no hurry. He has nowhere else to be. This is his afternoon routine, as regular and reliable as the sunrise, and the drugstore accommodates him without question. No one asks him to leave. No one suggests he might want to order something more profitable than endless refills of 10-cent coffee. He is a regular. He has earned his place. To your right, 3 stools down, the teenage couple leans close together, their foreheads nearly touching, whispering and giggling in the way young people do when they are newly in love, and everything is both thrilling and slightly embarrassing. The boy wears his hair combed back with pomade, slick and shining, and a short-sleeved shirt with a pack of cigarettes rolled into one sleeve. a look he probably copied from a movie star. The girl wears a summer dress, yellow with white flowers, and her hair is pulled back in a ponytail tied with a ribbon that matches the dress exactly. Between them, centered perfectly on the marble counter, sits a tall glass holding a chocolate milkshake. It is thick enough that the two straws standing in it do not fall over, thick enough that when they sip they have to work for it, their cheeks hollowing with effort. The glass is already half empty, or half full depending on your perspective, and they are making it last, taking turns, laughing when their straws cross in the middle, when their lips nearly touch over the rim. They're not just drinking a milkshake, they are performing a ritual, one that has been performed by countless couples at countless soda fountains, a small dance of intimacy and innocence. In later years, when they are married and have children of their own, they will remember this afternoon, this drugstore, this shared milkshake, and they will wonder why something so simple felt so important. But right now they do not wonder. They simply exist inside the moment, happy and young and convinced that this feeling will last forever. Further down the counter, near the pharmacy end, a woman in her 30s sits alone, a shopping bag at her feet, a glass of iced tea sweating gently beside her folded hands. She stares at nothing in particular, her expression neutral, neither happy nor sad, simply present. Perhaps she is tired. Perhaps she's taking a break from errands. Perhaps she just needed a place to sit for a while, a cool drink, a moment of peace. The drugstore gives her that without judgment. Near the door, a boy of perhaps 8 sits beside his mother, swinging his legs because they do not quite reach the footrest, working his way through a hot fudge sundae with the focused determination of someone engaged in important work. His mother watches him with a small smile, occasionally reaching over to wipe chocolate from his chin with a napkin, murmuring gentle reminders to slow down, to savour it, to not make himself sick. The boy nods without really listening, his attention entirely consumed by the task of navigating spoon to bowl to mouth in the most efficient possible route. These are your neighbours for the afternoon, though you may not know their names, though you may never speak to them. You share this counter, this space, this moment in time, and in that sharing there is a kind of communion. You're all here for your own reasons, pursuing your own small pleasures, but you are here together, and that creates a connection, however thin, however temporary. In a few minutes the older man will fold his newspaper, leave a dime on the counter, and walk out into the sunshine. The teenage couple will finish their milkshake and drift toward the magazine rack, still holding hands. The woman with the iced tea will gather her shopping bag and continue her errands. The boy will scrape the last of the fudge from his bowl and beg his mother for permission to spin on his stool just once more, and new people will arrive. New customers will claim these seats, order their own drinks, settle into their own rhythms. The counter will empty and fill and empty again, a tide of humanity that flows through this space all day, every day, year after year. But right now, in this moment, you are all here together, and somehow that is enough. At the far end of the store, behind a raised wooden counter with frosted glass panels, you see the pharmacist. He wears a starched white coat perfectly pressed, with his name embroidered in dark thread over the chest pocket. He is not just an employee, he is a pillar of the community, a man people trust with their secrets and their ailments. His coat is spotless, almost luminous in its whiteness, the fabric stiff with starch that makes it hold its shape even when he moves. The shoulders are squared, the lapels crisp, the buttons are lined in a perfect vertical line down the front. This is not a lab coat thrown on carelessly. This is a uniform worn with pride, cleaned and pressed after every shift, a visible symbol of professionalism and competence. The embroidery over the pocket reads Mr. Harrison in elegant script, navy blue thread stitched so precisely it looks printed rather than sewn. Below his name, in smaller letters, is the word pharmacist, just in case there was any doubt about his role, his authority, his responsibility. He is not Bob or Harry or some casual first-name friend. He is Mr. Harrison, and that formality creates distance but also respect. He stands behind the raised counter, elevated perhaps 6 inches above the main floor, which gives him a commanding view of the entire drugstore. From his position, he can see the soda fountain, the front door, the magazine rack, the toy corner. He can watch who comes in and who goes out. He can observe without seeming to observe, keeping a gentle eye on the flow of his domain while his hands work steadily at the task before him. Right now, he is counting pills, using a small triangular counting tray and a spatula, moving tablets from a large bottle into a smaller amber prescription bottle with methodical precision. He counts in 5s, pushing groups of pills to one side of the tray, then sweeping them into the bottle with a practiced motion. His lips move slightly as he counts, though no sound emerges. 20, 25, 30. When he reaches the prescribed number, he caps the bottle, types a label on a small manual typewriter kept on the counter, and affixes it with careful alignment. His workspace is immaculate. Glass beakers and graduated cylinders stand in neat rows on white paper. A mortar and pestle, ceramic and heavy, sits clean and ready for compounding. Reference books are stacked precisely, spines aligned, titles visible, the pharmacopoeia, drug interactions, physician's desk reference. A small scale with brass weights sits under a glass dome, protected from dust and drafts. People approach his counter differently than they approach the soda fountain. They come with hesitation, with privacy concerns, with questions they would not ask loudly. They lean in. They lower their voices. They ask about stomach troubles and sleeping problems and rashes in places they would rather not name. And Mr. Harrison listens with complete attention, his face neutral and kind, offering no judgment, only information and reassurance. He knows things about his neighbours that no one else knows. He knows who takes medicine for anxiety, and who needs insulin, and whose child has been prescribed something for bedwetting. He knows about the woman who buys certain products monthly, and the man who refills his heart medication late, too late, because he cannot afford to keep up. He knows secrets not because he pries, but because his profession requires people to tell him, to trust him, to hand over their most private concerns in exchange for help, and he keeps those secrets, always, without exception. This is not just professional ethics, this is personal honour. People trust Mr. Harrison not because they have to, but because he has earned it, day after day, year after year, prescription after prescription filled correctly, advice given freely, discretion maintained absolutely. He is perhaps 50 years old, his hair greying at the temples, his glasses perched low on his nose so he can peer over them when someone approaches. He has owned this drugstore for 20 years, bought it from the previous pharmacist who trained him, and he will own it for 20 more before selling it. In turn, to a younger man he will train with the same care he received. This is how things work here. This is continuity. This is legacy. When you catch his eye across the store, he nods once, a small acknowledgement that you exist, that you are seen, that if you need anything, he is there. It is a simple gesture, but it carries weight. Mr. Harrison does not nod at everyone. He nods at people he recognizes, people who belong here, people who are part of this community. And with that single nod, you feel something shift inside you, a small, warm certainty that in this place, at this moment, you are known. Behind the pharmacist, shelves rise to the ceiling packed with amber glass bottles, white cardboard boxes, and row after row of carefully labelled medicines. Some are familiar: aspirin, iodine, cod liver oil. Others have names that sound like incantations, elixirs and tonics and compounds mixed right here in the store. The shelves are wood, dark oak or walnut, built into the wall with the permanence of architecture rather than furniture. They stretch from floor to ceiling, perhaps 10 feet high, accessible only by a rolling ladder that hangs from a brass rail, the kind you see in old libraries. The wood is polished but not glossy, maintaining a dignified matte finish that suggests seriousness, utility, respect for the contents it holds. The amber glass bottles dominate the upper shelves, hundreds of them, each one stoppered with a glass stopper or a cork, each one labelled in careful handwriting or printed text. The amber colour is not decorative, it is functional, protecting light-sensitive medications from degradation, filtering out the harmful wavelength that would break down active ingredients. The glass is thick, heavy, substantial, designed to last for decades. Some of these bottles have been here since the store opened, refilled countless times, their labels yellowed but still legible. The labels themselves are small works of art, some printed in ornate Victorian typefaces, others handwritten in the elegant penmanship that pharmacists are trained to produce, clear and consistent and unmistakable. Each label lists the contents, the concentration, the date prepared if it was compounded here. Tincture of iodine, elixir of phenobarbital, compound syrup of squill. The names sound ancient, mystical, like ingredients for spells rather than medicine. The middle shelves hold cardboard boxes, white or pale blue, stacked with geometric precision. These are manufactured medications shipped from pharmaceutical companies, standardized and consistent. Aspirin tablets in bottles of 100, milk of magnesia in blue glass bottles, Bayer aspirin, Phillips milk of magnesia, Geritol, Hadacol, Lydia Pinkham's vegetable compound. The brand names are reassuring, familiar, advertised on radio and in magazines, promising relief and vigour and youthful energy. The lower shelves, within easy reach of the pharmacist's hands, hold the items he uses most frequently. Empty prescription bottles waiting to be filled, labels waiting to be typed, cotton balls in a large glass jar, tongue depressors in a paper sleeve, suppositories in foil wrappers, packets of powders to be mixed with water, ointments in small tins, everything organised not alphabetically, but by frequency of use, by the logic of a man who has filled thousands of prescriptions and knows exactly where his hand needs to go without looking. There are drawers too, dozens of small wooden drawers with brass pulls, each one labelled with a Latin name or a common abbreviation. These drawers hold the raw materials, the bulk ingredients that Mr. Harrison uses when he compounds a prescription from scratch. Powdered medications, crystals, dried. Herbs, oils and extract and tinctures that must be measured precisely, mixed carefully, adjusted for each patient's specific needs. This is a dying art, this compounding, though no one knows it yet in 1955. In a few decades, nearly everything will come pre-made, standardized, packaged in childproof containers by distant factories. But right now, in this moment, Mr. Harrison still mixes medications the way pharmacists have mixed them for centuries, combining ingredients with mortar and pestle, adjusting formulas, creating medicines that are tailored to individual patients rather than mass-produced for the average. You watch him reach for a bottle on the third shelf, his hand moving with automatic precision, selecting the correct bottle from among dozens without hesitation. He brings it down to his workspace, uncorks it, measures out a careful amount into a graduate cylinder, records the amount in a ledger. His movements are ritualistic, ceremonial, the gestures of a craft that is both science and art. The shelves represent knowledge accumulated over years of study and practice. Each bottle, Each box, each drawer contains not just a medication but a story, a use, a warning, a history. Mr. Harrison knows these stories. He knows which medicines interact badly with others. He knows which ones are dangerous in the wrong dose. He knows which ones were miracle cures 20 years ago and are now understood to be useless or harmful. He knows which ones are placebos that work anyway, because belief itself is powerful. The shelves also represent trust. People believe that what sits on these shelves will help them, will heal them, will ease their suffering. They believe that Mr. Harrison knows what he is doing, that he will not make mistakes, that he will protect them from harm. And that trust, built slowly over years and maintained daily through careful work, is perhaps the most valuable thing in this drugstore, more valuable than the marble counter or the soda fountain or the expensive inventory. Trust cannot be purchased. It can only be earned. And every time Mr. Harrison reaches for a bottle on those shelves, every time he measures and mixes and labels and dispenses, he is honouring that trust, fulfilling the unspoken contract between pharmacist and patient that has existed since ancient times, the promise that he will do his best, always, to help and never to harm. You wander toward the magazine rack near the front window, a tall wire carousel that spins with a metallic squeak when you give it a gentle push. The smell of fresh ink and glossy paper rises as you flip through the titles, each one a portal into a different world. The rack is perhaps 6 feet tall, octagonal, with 8 faces each holding a dozen magazines in slanted wire pockets. It rotates on a central pole, the bearing slightly worn, producing that characteristic squeak that announces someone is browsing. The sound is not unpleasant. It is familiar, expected, part of the acoustic landscape of the drugstore. The magazines are arranged roughly by category, though the organisation is imperfect, practical rather than systematic. One face of the carousel holds the women's magazines, glossy and colourful, their covers promising recipes and fashion advice and stories about romance. Ladies' Home Journal, Good Housekeeping, McCall's. The cover models are impossibly elegant, wearing dresses and hairstyles that real women can only approximate, smiling with the confident serenity of people who have never burned dinner or argued with their husbands. Another face holds the men's magazines, though men's in 1955 means something different than it will in later decades. These are popular mechanics and field and stream and outdoor life, magazines about building things and catching things and understanding how engines work. The covers show hunters in flannel and mechanics under cars and ambitious homeowners constructing additions to their houses. Practical masculinity, competent self-reliance. The general interest magazines occupy their own section. Life magazine with its large format and stunning photography, images so vivid you can lose yourself in them for minutes at a time. The Saturday Evening Post with its Norman Rockwell covers, paintings that capture American life with such gentle affection, you almost believe the country is really that wholesome. Look magazine, Reader's Digest, Collier's. These are the magazines families subscribe to, that sit on coffee tables that everyone reads. Then there are the movie magazines, tucked slightly lower where teenagers can reach them easily. Photo Play, Modern Screen, Silver Screen. The covers are entirely composed of faces, glamorous movie stars gazing out with expressions that suggest they know secrets you desperately want to learn. Inside are articles with breathless titles. Is Jane Wyman dating again? Marlon Brando's secret heartbreak. What really happened between Ava and Frank? The text is gossip disguised as journalism, speculation presented as fact, but no one seems to mind. And at the very bottom of the rack, in the pockets closest to the floor, are the comics. Not comic books, though those exist too on a separate spinner nearby, but humour magazines. Mad Magazine with its gap-toothed mascot. Cracked. Crazy. These are purchased by teenagers and read in secret. Their satirical edge slightly dangerous, slightly forbidden, which is of course exactly why they are popular. The spinner also holds a few pulp magazines, cheap paper, lurid covers, stories about crime and adventure and science fiction. These are not quite respectable, not quite appropriate, but the drugstore carries them anyway because people buy them, because every store needs to offer something slightly disreputable to balance out all the respectability. You give the carousel another spin, watching the titles blur past, and you select a magazine almost at random, pulling it from its pocket with a soft rustle of paper. The magazine is surprisingly heavy, substantial, printed on quality stock that feels good between your fingers. The pages smell of ink, that particular chemical perfume of fresh printing, sharp and slightly sweet. You flip through the pages slowly, not reading so much as browsing, taking in the advertisements as much as the articles. Advertisements for cigarettes showing doctors recommending particular brands. Advertisements for appliances showing housewives delighted by new refrigerators. Advertisements for cars showing families driving through impossibly scenic landscapes. The advertising is earnest, straightforward, free of the irony and self-awareness that will characterize future decades. The magazine costs 35 cents, printed clearly on the cover, and you consider whether to buy it. You probably will not read every article, will not study every advertisement, but there is something appealing about owning it, about taking it home, about having this artifact of this particular moment in time. Magazines are disposable, meant to be read once and discarded, but they are also small time capsules, capturing the concerns and interests and aesthetic sensibilities of their era with accidental precision. You slide the magazine back into its pocket and select another, then another, browsing with the leisurely pace of someone who has nowhere else to be. No one rushes you. No one suggests you should buy something or move along. The drugstore understands that browsing is part of the experience, that people come here not just to purchase but to linger, to explore, to see what is new and what might interest them. Around you, others are doing the same. A teenage boy flips through a hot rod magazine, studying photographs of customized cars with the intensity of a scholar examining ancient texts. A woman in a floral dress pages through a cookbook, her lips moving slightly as she reads a recipe. An older gentleman has claimed the latest issue of National Geographic and is reading it standing up, completely absorbed, his coffee forgotten on the counter behind him. This is the magazine rack as community resource, as entertainment, as window into the wider world. And in 1955, before television dominates every home, before the internet makes information instantaneous, these magazines matter. They are how people learn what is happening beyond their town, how they discover new ideas, how they stay connected to the larger culture. The magazine rack is not just retail space. It is a library, free to browse, constantly updated, democratic in its accessibility. Near the register sits a glass display case filled with candy, not individually wrapped in crinkly plastic, but loose, scooped from large jars and sold by weight. You press your nose close to the glass, admiring the rows of colour and shape. The display case is perhaps 4 feet long and 2 feet deep, its glass panels crystal clear, recently cleaned, showing the contents without distortion. The case is refrigerated, keeping the chocolate from melting during warm afternoons, and the slight chill that radiates from it feels pleasant against your face as you lean in to look. Inside, the candy is arranged with the care of a jeweller displaying gems. Each type occupies its own compartment, separated by low dividers, the colours and textures playing off each other in a way that is almost certainly intentional. This is not random. This is composition. designed to catch the eye, to create desire, to make choosing difficult because everything looks so appealing. In the front left are the chocolate-covered items, dark glossy mounds that could be chocolate-covered raisins or peanuts or caramels or creams. You cannot tell from looking, and that mystery is part of the appeal. The chocolate gleams under the overhead lights, reflecting tiny bright spots that make each piece look like it is winking at you. Next to the chocolate are the hard candies, transparent jewels in every colour imaginable. Lemon drops the colour of sunshine, cherry candies like garnets, lime candies bright as spring grass, butterscotch discs glowing amber. Each one is perfectly round, perfectly smooth, catching and bending the light in ways that make them seem to glow from within. The centre section holds the jawbreakers, spherical and massive, each one larger than a walnut, striped in concentric layers of colour that will be revealed gradually as you suck on them over the course of hours or days. These are not candy you eat quickly. These are candy as endurance test, as commitment, as achievement. Finishing a jawbreaker is something to be proud of. To the right are the softer candies. Caramels wrapped in waxed paper, each wrapper twisted at the ends like a tiny present. Taffy in pastel colours, pink and yellow and pale green, each piece stretched and cut by hand, still slightly sticky. Gumdrops dusted with sugar that sparkles like frost. Licorice whips, both black and red, coiled like sleeping snakes. The back row holds the specialty items, the more expensive treats. Chocolate-covered cherries, each one a small miracle of engineering, liquid filling somehow contained within a chocolate shell. Malted milk balls with their crunchy centres and smooth coatings. Bridge mix, a fancy assortment of chocolate-covered nuts and fruits meant for adult entertaining, but purchased just as often by children with saved allowance. Above the candy case, mounted on the wall, is a scale, brass with white enamel face, the kind with a scoop on one side and weights on the other. This is how candy is sold here, by weight rather than by count, scooped into small white paper bags that the cashier will fold closed with precise creases. You tell her what you want, 1/4 pound of this, 2 ounces of that, and she uses a metal scoop to transfer the candy from case to bag to scale, adjusting until the indicator settles exactly on the mark you paid for. This system requires trust. You cannot count the pieces, cannot verify that you received exactly what you ordered. You have to trust that the scale is accurate, that the cashier is honest, that the drugstore values its reputation more than the few pennies it might gain by shortchanging customers. And that trust is rarely violated, because in a small community where everyone knows everyone, reputation is everything, and a dishonest scale would be discovered quickly and punished severely by loss of business. You point to the lemon drops, and the cashier nods, reaching for the scoop. "How much?" she asks. "A nickel's worth, you say, which will get you perhaps 10 pieces, enough to last the walk home if you ration them carefully, or gone in 5 minutes if you do not." She scoops, weighs, adds one more piece to bring the weight exactly right, then pours the candies into a small white bag. The paper is waxed on the inside to prevent the candy from sticking, and when she folds the top closed, the bag makes a soft crinkling sound that is almost as satisfying as the candy itself. She hands you the bag and you receive it carefully, feeling the slight weight of it, the faint warmth from her hands still present in the paper. Through the translucent bag you can see the yellow candies glowing softly, and already your mouth is watering in anticipation. This candy case represents something important beyond simple sugar and flavouring. It represents a different relationship between customer and product, one that is tactile, personal, measured specifically for you at the moment of purchase. It represents trust and community standards, and the belief that some things should be sold by people rather than machines, weighed rather than counted, chosen individually rather than grabbed in prepackaged units. In a few decades, this will all change. Candy will come sealed in plastic, portioned by distant factories, standardized and safe and utterly impersonal. The candy case will disappear from drugstores, replaced by racks of brightly coloured packages hanging on pegboard hooks. The scale will be retired, the scoop discarded, the glass case repurposed or sold. But right now, in 1955, the candy counter is still here, still operating, still offering this small moment of choice and anticipation and carefully weighed sweetness. And you are grateful for it. Grateful to live in a time when buying candy is still an experience rather than a transaction, still involves human hands and brass scales and the gentle ritual of watching someone scoop and weigh and fold and hand you something made just slightly special by the care involved in its selection. In the back corner of the store, past the pharmacy and the greeting cards, is a small section dedicated to toys. Not an entire aisle, just a modest display, a wooden shelf unit with a few dozen items carefully arranged. The shelves are simple pine, painted white, standing perhaps 5 feet tall and 4 feet wide. They were built by someone local. You can tell by the slightly uneven joints and the hand-painted finish, not factory-made but crafted with sufficient skill to be sturdy and functional. The shelves hold 3 rows of toys, each row a different category, a miniature department store condensed into a single unit. The top shelf holds the toys for older children, the more sophisticated items that require patience and skill. Model airplane kits in bright boxes showing sleek fighters and bombers, the kind you assemble piece by piece using glue that makes your fingers sticky and your head slightly light. Erector sets in metal boxes, the contents promising you can build bridges and cranes and towers if you have enough patience and do not lose too many tiny bolts. Chemistry sets with glass beakers and mysterious powders, the kind that let you conduct experiments that would be illegal in later decades when safety regulations catch up with childhood curiosity. These toys are not cheap. They cost several dollars each, a significant investment, the kind of thing parents buy for birthdays or Christmas, not on casual Wednesday afternoons. But they are displayed prominently anyway, aspirational purchases, reminding children of what they might receive if they are good, if they save their allowance, if the right occasion arrives. The middle shelf is more accessible, both in height and price. Here are the classic toys that have been popular for decades and will remain popular for decades more. Yo-yos in bright colours, some wooden, some plastic. Jacks in small cloth bags with a red rubber ball. Marbles in jars, the glass spheres clicking against each other with a sound like distant applause. Jump ropes with wooden handles worn smooth by thousands of jumps. Playing cards in paper boxes. Paddle balls with rubber strings that always break at the worst possible moment. These toys cost quarters and dimes, affordable on allowance, the kind of thing a child can buy with their own money and feel the pride of independent purchase. They're simple, requiring no batteries, no complicated instructions, no adult supervision. They are toys that work anywhere, that can be carried in pockets, that can be played with alone or with friends, that require only imagination and physical coordination. The bottom shelf holds the toys for younger children, placed low so small hands can reach them, so toddlers can point and make their desires known. Rubber balls in primary colours, wooden blocks in canvas bags, small stuffed animals with button eyes and stitched smiles, colouring books with Dick and Jane on the covers, their perfect lives waiting to be filled in with crayon. Crayons themselves, in yellow boxes of 8 or 16 or 64, the 64 count box and extravagance that most children only dream about. There are also paper dolls, whole families of them, printed on heavy cardstock with wardrobes of outfits to be carefully cut out with blunt scissors. These are particularly popular with girls who cannot yet afford real dolls, but who possess the imagination to make paper families feel real, to construct elaborate stories about where the paper mother is going in her fancy dress, why the paper father needs his business suit, whether the paper children are happy or sad or somewhere in between. The toy selection is limited but sufficient. This is not a toy store. This is a drugstore that happens to carry toys, a service to parents who need a quick distraction for a restless child, to grandparents who want to bring a small gift, to children themselves who have coins burning holes in their pockets and need something, anything, to show for their wealth. Mr. Harrison, the pharmacist, chose these toys himself, ordering from catalogues, selecting items he thought would sell, would bring joy, would be appropriate for the children of this town. He could have dedicated this space to more profitable items, to more medicine or cosmetics or magazines. But he chose toys instead, because a drugstore is not just a business, it is a community institution, and communities need places where children can find small happinesses. You pick up a yo-yo, testing its weight in your palm, feeling the smoothness of the wood, the tight wind of the string around the axle. It costs 35 cents. You set it down and pick up a small rubber ball, bright red, slightly tacky to the touch, the kind that bounces with surprising enthusiasm when thrown against pavement. It costs a dime. You're probably too old for these toys, or at least you think you are, but there is something comforting about them anyway, something that connects you to earlier versions of yourself, to simpler times when a ball or a yo-yo or a bag of marbles was enough to fill entire afternoons with entertainment. The toys are small, inexpensive, humble, but they carry weight beyond their physical presence. They are objects that facilitate play, that encourage imagination, that require no electricity or batteries or complex assembly, that work exactly as expected every time. In this corner of the drugstore, childhood is acknowledged, respected, given its own small space, and that feels important, even if you cannot quite articulate why. You drift toward the greeting card section, a tall rotating rack filled with folded cardstock, each one illustrated by hand, printed with messages that feel earnest and slightly formal. There are birthday cards, get well soon cards, sympathy cards, and a small selection for holidays. The rack is similar to the magazine carousel but smaller, perhaps 4 feet tall, with 4 sides instead of 8. It spins more smoothly than the magazine rack, recently oiled, rotating in silence when you give it a gentle push. The cards are displayed in clear plastic sleeves, 5 or 6 cards deep in each slot, organised by occasion and then by tone, serious to humorous, traditional to slightly irreverent. The birthday cards dominate one entire side of the rack, and within that category there are subdivisions. Cards for children show balloons and cakes and clowns, the illustrations simple and cheerful, the messages straightforward. Happy birthday. May your day be filled with joy. The rhymes are predictable but sincere, written by people who believe that greeting cards served a genuine purpose, that the right words on folded paper could convey real affection. Cards for adults are more sophisticated in design but equally earnest in sentiment. Watercolour flowers frame elegant script. Embossed gold borders catch the light. The messages inside are longer, more elaborate, wishing not just happiness but also success, health, prosperity, love. These cards take themselves seriously and expect to be taken seriously in return. In 1955, sending a greeting card is not an afterthought or an obligation. It is a deliberate act of connection, a way of saying I thought of you, I remembered, you matter enough for me to stop what I am doing and select these specific words. The Get Well Soon cards occupy their own section, their tone carefully calibrated between sympathy and encouragement. The illustrations show beds with fluffed pillows, windows with sunshine streaming in, vases with cheerful flowers. The messages acknowledge illness without dwelling on it, offering hope without making promises. Wishing you a speedy recovery, may you feel better soon. Thinking of you during this difficult time, these cards will be signed and mailed or delivered personally, accompanied by casseroles and offers, to help with chores, physical manifestations of the concern expressed in printed words. The sympathy cards are placed higher on the rack, perhaps out of respect, perhaps to keep them away from children who might ask uncomfortable questions. These are the most formal cards, their colours muted, their illustration subdued. Lilies, crosses, doves. The messages inside are brief, acknowledging that no words can truly address grief, but offering them anyway. With deepest sympathy, our thoughts are with you. May you find comfort in this difficult time. These cards will be kept, often for years, pulled out occasionally and reread, the signatures of friends and relatives becoming a kind of monument to connection, proof that others cared, that suffering was witnessed and acknowledged. The holiday cards are seasonal, and in summer they are sparse. A few belated Father's Day cards and some early preparations for Christmas, though most people will not think about Christmas cards until after Thanksgiving. But come December, this section will explode with choices, Santas and snowmen and nativity scenes, religious and secular mixed together without conflict, all celebrating the same season in different ways. There are also a few cards for less common occasions. Congratulations on your graduation. Welcome to your new home. Congratulations on your engagement. Best wishes on your retirement. These cards acknowledge the milestones of ordinary life, the moments that matter to individuals and families, even if they do not make headlines or appear in history books. You select a birthday card, pulling it from its sleeve, opening it to read the message inside. The card is heavier than modern cards, the paper substantial, almost like thin cardboard. The illustration on the front is printed in 4 colours, the registration slightly imperfect, creating a soft halo effect around the edges of each shape. The message inside is printed in a flowing script that mimics handwriting without quite achieving it. The card costs 15 cents, printed clearly on the back along with the manufacturer's name and location. Made by American Greetings in Cleveland, Ohio. There is something reassuring about knowing where the card came from, about the specificity of its origin, about the fact that someone in Cleveland designed this, someone else printed it, someone else shipped it, and now it has arrived here, in this drugstore, waiting for you to purchase it and inscribe your own personal message below the printed words. You close the card and return it to its sleeve. You're not buying today, just browsing, but you make a mental note of which cards are here, which designs you liked, which messages felt right. Because eventually you will need a card, everyone does, and when that time comes you will return to this rack, spin it slowly until you find the right card, pull it from its sleeve, and carry it to the register along with an envelope that matches. This rack of greeting cards represents something larger than paper and ink and folded cardstock. It represents the social expectation that certain occasions demand acknowledgement, that relationships require maintenance, that the people in our lives deserve to know they're remembered, celebrated, mourned, supported. The cards are tools for fulfilling these expectations, making it easier to say things that might otherwise go unsaid, providing the words when our own words fail us. And in 1955, when long-distance phone calls are expensive and letter writing is becoming less common, and email does not yet exist, these cards matter. They are how people stay connected across distances, how they mark the passages of time, how they participate in each other's lives even when physically absent. The greeting card rack is not just retail inventory, it is infrastructure for maintaining human connection. And the drugstore, by carrying these cards, by displaying them prominently, by restocking them regularly, is performing a service that goes beyond commerce into something closer to social necessity. Near the front of the store, in a glass case lit from within, the perfume bottles gleam like jewels. This is not a vast cosmetics section with 100 brands competing for attention. This is a small, curated collection, perhaps a dozen bottles, each one chosen with care. The display case is perhaps 3 feet wide and 2 feet tall, positioned at standing height so customers can look down into it comfortably. The glass is spotless, polished until it disappears, and the interior is lined with white satin that reflects and diffuses the light, making everything inside glow softly as if lit from within by its own inner luminescence. The perfume bottles themselves are works of art, designed in an era when packaging mattered, when the bottle was part of the product, when opening a perfume was meant to be an experience of luxury and beauty. They are glass, heavy glass, cut and moulded into shapes that range from simple geometric forms to elaborate figurative designs. One bottle is shaped like a woman in a flowing gown, the stopper forming her head. Another is a simple rectangular column with beveled edges that catch the light and throw rainbows. A third is a sphere sitting in a gold-toned metal stand, looking more like a piece of laboratory equipment than a cosmetic product. The colours of the glass vary. Some bottles are clear, letting you see the amber or pink or pale gold liquid inside. Others are opaque, frosted glass in white or pale blue or mint green, hiding their contents, requiring faith that what inside is worth the price, printed on the small card beside each bottle. A few are coloured glass, deep jewel tones, emerald and sapphire and amethyst, beautiful even when empty. Each bottle has a label, either paper glued to the glass or text etched directly into the surface. The labels are elegant, the typefaces carefully chosen, the brand names often French or Italian, or at least designed to sound French or Italian, because in 1955 perfume is understood to be European, sophisticated, imported, or at least aspiring to seem imported. Chanel No. 5 sits in the centre of the display, the iconic rectangular bottle with its simple white label, the most famous perfume in the world, the one Marilyn Monroe claimed was all she wore to bed. It is expensive, more than most people can afford for everyday use, but it is there anyway, a kind of standard against which all other perfumes are measured. Around it are the slightly more accessible brands. Evening in Paris in its cobalt blue bottle, affordable and popular, smelling of powder and flowers, the perfume teenage girls save their allowance to buy. Taboo with its dark, mysterious bottle and its spicy oriental scent. White shoulders with its clean floral notes, safe and pretty, the kind of perfume mothers wear to church. Shalimar, Arpège, L'air du temps, each one with its own personality, its own promised transformation. There are also colognes, lighter and less expensive than perfumes, suitable for men or for women who find perfume too heavy. English leather for men, astringent and masculine, 4,711 cologne in its yellow label bottle, crisp and lemony, refreshing after a shave or a bath. These sit slightly apart from the perfumes, acknowledging the gender divisions of the era without making too much of them. Behind the counter, not in the case but on a small shelf visible to anyone who asks, are the drugstore brands, less expensive, less prestigious, but serviceable. These are the perfumes sold in dime stores and drugstores rather than department stores, perfectly adequate scents in plain bottles. For women who want to smell nice without spending money they do not have. They are not displayed as prominently as the prestige brands, but they are available, and many women purchase them without shame, understanding that smelling pleasant does not require spending a week's grocery money. The woman behind the counter, the same one who weighs candy and rings up purchases, is also qualified to help with perfume selection. She has sampled all the scents, can describe each one, knows which are sweet and which are spicy, which are appropriate for day and which for evening, which are popular with younger women and which with older. If you ask, she will open the case, remove a bottle, uncap it, and allow you to smell it, either from the bottle or applied to a small piece of paper, a test strip that she keeps in a drawer for this purpose. Trying perfume is an intimate act, requiring time and attention. Scent is subjective, personal, connected to memory and emotion, in ways that make choosing perfume more complex than choosing, say, aspirin or toothpaste. The woman behind the counter understands this, gives you time, does not rush you, offers suggestions but does not push. She knows that perfume is not just fragrance, it is identity, confidence, aspiration, the olfactory signature a woman leaves behind when she enters a room or passes on the street. You lean close to the case, studying the bottles, and you realize that each one is making a promise. Wear me, and you will be elegant. Wear me, and you will be mysterious. Wear me, and you will be loved. The promises are implied rather than stated, but they are there nonetheless, embedded in the design of the bottles, in the names of the perfumes, in the carefully crafted marketing that surrounds them. Whether the promises are kept is another matter entirely. But standing here, looking at these beautiful bottles glowing softly in their lit case, you want to believe. You want to believe that the right perfume could transform you, could make you more than you currently are, could give you some quality you admire but do not possess. And maybe, in some small way, it could. Maybe smelling beautiful would make you feel beautiful, and feeling beautiful would make you carry yourself differently, and carrying yourself differently would change how others see you. Maybe the transformation is not magic but psychology, but the result is the same. The perfume counter is small, modest compared to the cosmetics departments that will dominate drugstores and department stores in later decades. But it is enough. It offers choice without overwhelming, luxury without extravagance, beauty that is accessible if not always affordable. And in 1955, that is exactly what most people want. Behind the counter, on a wooden rack within easy reach of the cashier, rows of cigarette packs are stacked like a colourful library. This is not hidden. This is not apologetic. This is simply inventory, as ordinary as aspirin or chewing gum. The display occupies perhaps 4 feet of wall space directly behind the register, positioned so the cashier can reach it without leaving her post, so customers can see the options clearly, so the familiar brand names and package designs are constantly visible, a kind of passive advertising that works through simple presence. The cigarette packs are arranged by brand, each brand occupying its own vertical column, the packs stacked 5 or 6 high, each stack representing a carton's worth of inventory, stored somewhere in back. The packaging is surprisingly beautiful, a variety of colours and designs that make the display look almost decorative, a piece of folk art assembled accidentally through commercial necessity. Lucky Strike in white packages with the iconic red circle, the bullseye that makes each pack instantly recognizable even from across the room. Camel in beige packages showing the dromedary and profile, exotic and vaguely Middle Eastern, promising adventure and masculinity. Chesterfield in white with red accents, clean and classic. Pall Mall in red, distinctive and elegant. The women's brands, though they're not called that officially, are positioned slightly to the left. Virginia Slims will not appear for another decade, but there are brands that appeal primarily to female smokers through their packaging and marketing. Parliament, with its recessed filter, considered more refined, more sophisticated. Marlboro, before the cowboy, when it was still marketed to women with the slogan mild as May. Some brands advertise themselves directly on the packaging. L&M boasts, just what the doctor ordered, a claim that will seem grotesque in hindsight, but in 1955 is accepted without irony. Doctors do recommend cigarettes, or at least they appear in advertisements doing so, white coats and stethoscopes lending medical authority to tobacco sales. Cigarettes are understood to be sophisticated, relaxing, adult, even healthy in moderation. The prices are marked on small cards clipped to the display. A pack costs 25 or 30 cents depending on the brand. A carton, 10 packs, costs $2.50. These are prices anyone can afford, which is part of the problem. Though in 1955 the problem is not yet widely recognized. Smoking is not just accepted. It is normalized, expected, woven into the fabric of daily life so completely that not smoking is seen as unusual, even slightly suspect. The cashier sells dozens of packs each day, sliding them across the counter without comment, without judgment, without health warnings, because health warnings do not yet exist. The purchase is casual, routine, like buying bread or milk. People send their children to buy cigarettes, handing them a dollar bill and instructions, a pack of Lucky Strikes for your father. The children comply without question, and the cashier sells to them without hesitation, because this is normal. This is how things work. Behind the display, on the wall, are larger advertisements, posters and cardboard standees showing impossibly attractive people smoking with obvious pleasure. Beautiful women in evening gowns holding cigarettes at elegant angles. Handsome men in suits lighting up after closing a big business deal. Athletes, surprisingly, also appears, the message being that cigarettes do not interfere with physical fitness, might even enhance it through their calming, focusing effects. Some of the advertisements make specific health claims, not irritating to your throat, smoother, milder, lower tar. These claims are meant to reassure, to address the vague concerns some people are beginning to have about coughing and shortness of breath, but they do not suggest that the solution is to stop smoking. The solution is to switch brands, to find the cigarette that is less harmful, as if harm can be negotiated rather than avoided. There are also cigars displayed in a humidor box on the counter itself, wooden box with glass front, the cigars visible inside, brown and substantial. These are impulse purchases, treats, celebratory items. A man buys a cigar to smoke after his child is born, after he closes a sale, after any moment that feels significant enough to deserve commemoration. Cigars are more expensive than cigarettes, 50 cents or $1 each, but they are also more occasional, and the ritual of selecting, cutting and lighting a cigar is part of their appeal. Pipe tobacco occupies a small section of its own, tins stacked beside the cigars, each tin decorated with images of pipes and tobacco leaves, and sometimes old sea captains or English gentlemen, reinforcing the idea that pipe smoking is distinguished, intellectual, the habit of professors and writers and men of substance. The tobacco inside comes in flavours: cherry, vanilla, walnut. It smells better than cigarette smoke, sweeter, more intentional, but it is still smoke, still nicotine, still the same chemical transaction with the body. You stand at the counter, watching the cashier sell a pack of Camels to an older man in work clothes. The transaction takes 5 seconds. He hands her 30 cents. She takes a pack from the display, slides it across the counter, drops his coins in the register with a musical clink. No conversation, no ceremony, just commerce, quick and efficient, enabling an addiction that will eventually kill thousands, millions. But in 1955 is simply a sale, neutral and unremarkable. Cigarettes moving from shelf to pocket as casually as candy or gum or any other legal product purchased by adults who believe they're making informed, reasonable choices about their own bodies. You settle back onto your stool at the counter, your cherry coke now half finished, and you begin to notice the rhythm of the place. The drugstore is not just a store, it is a gathering place, a crossroads where people come not only to buy, but to linger, to see and be seen. The afternoon light has shifted, softening as it slants through the front windows, no longer the harsh brightness of midday, but the gentler glow of late afternoon. The quality of the light changes the mood of the store, makes everything feel slightly more relaxed, as if the drugstore itself is settling into a more comfortable posture. The regulars understand this rhythm, have internalized it, structure their days around it. They arrive at specific times, claim specific seats, fall into familiar patterns that vary little from day to day. The older man with the fedora is still here, still reading his newspaper, though he has moved on to the sports section. He will stay until 4, until his wife expects him home for supper, and not a minute longer. This is his routine, as fixed and reliable as the sunrise. 2 stools down from you, a woman in her 50s has appeared, settling onto her usual spot without needing to check if it is available, because it is always available at this hour. She orders tea, hot tea, which the soda jerk prepares by heating water in a small kettle and pouring it over a tea bag in a heavy ceramic cup. She wraps both hands around the cup, even though the afternoon is warm, because the gesture comforts her. She's a widow, you learn from listening, and this hour at the drugstore is how she marks the boundary between her productive day and her lonely evening. The soda jerk knows her name, knows her order, knows not to rush her. When she finishes her first cup, he refills it without asking, just brings the kettle over and tops off her cup. A small kindness that costs the drugstore pennies but means more than money to her. She thanks him with a smile that suggests she is grateful not just for the tea, but for the acknowledgement, for the proof that she still exists in the awareness of other people. Conversation happens around the counter, not in one unified discussion, but in several overlapping exchanges, people talking to those beside them, occasionally calling out comments to others farther down the line. The topics are local, immediate, grounded in the specifics of this town and this moment. Mrs. Patterson's garden, the new traffic light at 5th and Main, whether the high school football team will win on Friday. These are not earth-shattering discussions, but they matter to the people having them, and they serve a function beyond information exchange. The gossip is gentle, mostly, though it can have teeth when needed. News travels quickly here, passed from person to person with editorial commentary attached. Did you hear that the Morton boy enlisted? I heard the Hendersons are selling their house, moving to California. Sarah Thompson is engaged to a boy from 2 towns over. No one knows much about him. The gossip binds the community together, keeps everyone informed of what everyone else is doing, creates a web of knowledge and speculation that makes the town feel smaller, more intimate, more knowable. Sometimes the pharmacist joins the conversation, stepping down from his elevated position behind the prescription counter to stand among the customers, his white coat marking him as slightly separate, but his participation welcomed. People ask him questions that have nothing to do with medicine, his opinion on the new mayor, his thoughts on whether the unseasonably cool weather will hurt the corn crop. He answers thoughtfully, aware that as one of the educated professionals in town, his views carry weight, that he has a responsibility to be measured, reasonable, informed. The soda jerk, younger and less authoritative, still participates in his own way, offering comments as he works, his commentary light and often humorous, providing levity without disrespect. He knows everyone's names, remembers their families, asks after sick relatives and graduated children. This is part of his job, this social labour, and he performs it naturally, effortlessly, as if he genuinely cares about these people, which perhaps he does. You sit and listen, not contributing much but present, and you realise that this is one of the drugstore's essential functions. It is a place where people can be among others without being required to perform. where they can absorb the ambient social warmth of community without the obligations of more formal interaction. You can sit here for an hour and speak to no one, and still feel less alone than you did when you arrived. The presence of others, the hum of conversation, the small dramas and mundane updates, all of it creates a kind of safety net, a reminder that you are part of something larger than yourself. The gossip is the currency that fuels this social engine, the exchange of information that keeps everyone connected, invested in each other's lives. It can be petty, can be cruel, can spread misinformation and hurt feelings. But it can also be kind, supportive, a way of showing care for neighbours by staying informed about their struggles and triumphs. The gossip at the drugstore counter is not journalism, is not objective reporting. It is community maintenance, performed daily by people who understand that knowing about each other is how small towns survive, how they maintain cohesion in a world that is increasingly mobile and anonymous. Someone approaches the pharmacy counter, an older woman clutching a prescription slip, and she leans in close to speak with the pharmacist. You cannot hear their conversation, but you see the way he listens, nodding slowly, his expression serious and kind. Mr. Harrison sets down the mortar and pestle he was using, wipes his hands on a small towel, and gives the woman his complete attention. This is one of the privileges of being a pharmacist in 1955. People still have time for you, still believe that their concerns are worth listening to, still expect that you will treat them as individuals rather than as prescription numbers in a queue. The woman is perhaps 70, stooped slightly, wearing a floral print dress that has been washed so many times, the pattern has faded to ghosts of colour. She holds the prescription slip in trembling fingers, and even from your distant seat you can see that she is anxious, uncertain, needing not just medicine but reassurance. Mr. Harrison takes the prescription, glances at it briefly, then sets it aside and focuses entirely on the woman. His body language is open, patient, his hands resting on the counter where she can see them, his face tilted slightly toward her to indicate that she has his full attention, that whatever she needs to say is important and will be heard. She speaks quietly, too quietly for you to hear the words, but you can read the emotion in her posture, the way she wraps her arms around herself, the way her eyes drop to the counter rather than meeting his gaze. She's embarrassed, perhaps, or frightened, or simply overwhelmed by whatever condition requires this prescription. Mr. Harrison listens without interrupting, nodding occasionally to show he is following, understanding. When she finishes, he asks a question, also quietly, and she answers with a small nod. Then he begins to explain, and even though you cannot hear the words, you can see that he is being thorough, using his hands to illustrate points, speaking slowly to ensure comprehension. This is doctoring without the medical degree, the role pharmacists have played for centuries, serving as the most accessible healthcare provider in many communities. Mr. Harrison cannot diagnose, cannot prescribe, but he can educate, can reassure, can help people understand what their doctors have told them and what their medicines will do. For many people, especially older people, especially people without much formal education, the pharmacist is the translator between the complex world of medicine and their own urgent bodily concerns. He disappears into the back for a moment, returning with a bottle that he has already prepared, knowing this woman would come in today because her doctor called ahead. He holds the bottle at eye level, showing her the label, reading it aloud to make sure she understands. Take 1 tablet 3 times daily with food. Do not exceed the recommended dose. May cause drowsiness. His voice is clear, firm, ensuring that the instructions are not just heard but understood. The woman nods, reaching into her purse for payment. The prescription costs perhaps $2, a significant sum for her. You can tell by the way she counts out the bills and coins carefully, making sure she has not made a mistake. Mr. Harrison takes her money without counting it again, trusting her accuracy, and makes change from the register drawer, placing the coins in her palm rather than on the counter, a small gesture of respect. But he is not finished. He asks another question, and she hesitates before answering. He nods, then reaches under the counter and produces a small white box, a sample of something, and places it beside her prescription. "For the dizziness," he says, loudly enough that you can hear, "this should help. No charge." The woman's eyes brighten and she thanks him, her gratitude genuine and touching. This is the pharmacist as community caretaker, looking after his neighbours not just through the medicines he dispenses, but through the care he takes to ensure they are used properly, through the extra help he provides when he sees a need, through the simple kindness of paying attention to vulnerable people who might otherwise fall through the cracks. As the woman turns to leave, Mr. Harrison calls after her, "Mrs. Abernathy, you let me know if those work. If not, I'll talk to Dr. Williams about trying something else." She waves without turning, too moved to speak, and makes her way toward the door, clutching her paper bag like it contains something precious, which in a sense it does. You watch this interaction, and you understand something about the drugstore that had not been explicit before. This place is not just about commerce, not just about selling products for profit. It is about care, about relationships, about the responsibility that comes with being a trusted professional in a small community where everyone knows everyone and people rely on each other because they have no other choice. Mr. Harrison returns to his work, picking up his mortar and pestle, beginning to grind some substance into powder, but you notice that his expression has softened, that he looks almost pleased, as if the interaction with Mrs. Abernathy was satisfying in a way that filling a straightforward prescription is not. He has helped someone, truly helped, and that is why he became a pharmacist. That is why he stays here in this small town rather than moving to the city where he could make more money. This connection, this ability to make a real difference in individual lives, this is what makes the work meaningful, and you realize that what you are witnessing is something increasingly rare, something that will become harder to find as the decades pass and pharmacies become chains, as pharmacists become employees rather than owners, as efficiency and profit margins replace personal relationships and individual attention. Mr. Harrison is practicing a kind of medicine that does not require a medical degree, but that is no less important. The medicine of listening and explaining and caring, and you feel privileged to have seen it, however briefly, however incompletely. The soda jerk wipes down the counter and flips a small chalkboard sign that lists the lunch specials, written in careful cursive. Grilled cheese, 35 cents. Egg salad on white, 40 cents. Tomato soup, a quarter. It is simple food, diner food, but made fresh and served with care. The chalkboard is perhaps 8 inches by 12, framed in wood that has been painted and repainted so many times the grain barely shows through anymore. It hangs from a small brass hook screwed into the wall behind the counter, positioned so customers can read it easily from their stools. The cursive writing is confident, flowing, the work of someone who learned penmanship in school when penmanship was still taught as a skill worth mastering. Each letter connects to the next in smooth loops. The capitals flourish just enough to be decorative without becoming illegible. The specials change daily, though not dramatically. Monday might be grilled cheese and tomato soup. Tuesday might be egg salad and chicken noodle. Wednesday might bring tuna on rye and vegetable beef. The rotation is predictable, comforting, allowing regulars to plan their visits around their favourite combinations. No one expects innovation or surprise from the drugstore lunch counter. They expect consistency, reliability, the same good simple food prepared the same good simple way every time. The food itself is made in a tiny kitchen area behind the soda fountain, barely large enough to be called a kitchen, really just a hot plate, a toaster and a small refrigerator tucked into a space originally designed for storage. The soda jerk is also the short order cook, managing both roles simultaneously, mixing a chocolate malt with one hand while flipping a grilled cheese with the other, his movements choreographed through repetition into a kind of dance. When someone orders a grilled cheese, he begins by buttering 2 slices of white bread, real butter from a dish kept at room temperature so it spreads easily without tearing the soft bread. The butter is generous, coating the bread edge to edge, because this is not a place that skimps on ingredients or tries to maximize profit margins by serving dry toast. The bread is standard white sandwich bread, squishy and mild, the kind that comes sliced in waxed paper wrappers, the kind every household in America has in their bread box. He places 1 slice butter side down on the hot griddle, where it immediately begins to sizzle softly. Then comes the cheese, American cheese in individually wrapped slices, bright orange, rubbery, delicious in its unpretentious simplicity. He lays 2 slices on the bread, overlapping them slightly to ensure complete coverage, then tops them with a second slice of bread, butter side up. The grilled cheese cooks slowly, the butter melting into the bread, the underside turning golden brown while the cheese inside begins to soften. After a few minutes, the soda jerk checks the colour, lifts one edge with his spatula to peek underneath, and satisfied with the golden brown hue, flips the sandwich with a quick motion of his wrist. The uncooked side hits the griddle with another gentle sizzle, and the process continues. While the second side cooks, he ladles tomato soup from a small pot kept warm on the hot plate. The soup is Campbell's, recognizable by its bright red colour and slightly sweet flavour, the same soup millions of American families eat at home, but somehow it tastes better here, served in a thick ceramic bowl that holds the heat, accompanied by a package of saltine crackers in their waxed paper sleeve. When the grilled cheese is finished, golden brown on both sides, the cheese melted and beginning to seep out the edges, he transfers it to a plate with his spatula, cuts it diagonally with a single sure motion, and arranges the 2 triangles side by side. The cut is not random. Sandwiches cut diagonally are somehow more appealing than sandwiches cut straight across, presenting better, creating 2 points that can be picked up easily, making the whole affair feel slightly more elegant. He places the plate on the counter in front of the customer, along with the bowl of soup, adds a paper napkin and a spoon, and steps back. The whole process has taken perhaps 5 minutes, and the result is exactly what was promised. Nothing more, nothing less. A grilled cheese sandwich and a bowl of tomato soup, hot, fresh, satisfying, the kind of meal that nourishes the body without challenging it, that comforts without demanding attention or sophistication. The egg salad is made fresh each morning by Mr. Harrison's wife, who boils eggs in her own kitchen at home, chops them by hand, mixes them with mayonnaise and a little mustard, and finely diced celery, adds salt and pepper, and delivers the bowl to the drugstore before opening. The mixture is kept cold in the small refrigerator, and when someone orders an egg salad sandwich, the soda jerk simply spreads it on white bread, adds a leaf of lettuce if requested, cuts it in half, and serves it on a plate with a pickle spear. The food is not fancy. It is not innovative. It does not try to be anything other than what it is. But it is made with attention, served with care, priced fairly, and accompanied by the ambient warmth of the drugstore itself, the conversation at the counter, the sense of being among neighbours. And that makes it more than just food. It makes it an experience, a small dependable pleasure in the middle of an ordinary day, the kind of thing people will remember decades later with surprising fondness, the taste and smell and feel of a grilled cheese at Miller's Pharmacy, somehow becoming entangled with their memories of childhood, of simpler times, of a world that moved more slowly and felt more knowable. At the front of the store, the cash register sits like a brass monument, its keys arranged in neat rows, each one stamped with a number or a symbol. When the cashier rings up a sale, the machine makes a sound, a bright mechanical ding that echoes through the store. The register is a national cash register, built sometime in the 1930s, all brass and black enamel, heavy enough that it would take 3 strong men to move it. It sits on the counter near the front door, positioned so the cashier can see everyone who enters and exits, so she can keep watch over the merchandise, so she can greet customers as they arrive and thank them as they leave. The register is not just a tool. It is a piece of furniture, a landmark, a symbol of the drugstore's permanence and prosperity. The top of the register is ornate, decorated with scrollwork and flourishes that serve no functional purpose, but that announce this machine's importance, its dignity. The brass has been polished so many times over the years that some of the detail has softened, the sharp edges worn smooth by decades of daily cleaning, but it still gleams under the overhead lights, still catches and reflects the afternoon sun that slants through the front windows. The keys are arranged in rows, white with black numbers, each key slightly concave to fit a fingertip, each one requiring a firm downward press to register. The cashier, a woman in her 40s with greying hair pinned up in a neat bun, knows the keyboard by touch, can ring up sales without looking, her fingers finding the correct keys through muscle memory developed over years of practice. When she presses a key, the machine responds with satisfying mechanical action. The key travels downward perhaps half an inch, meeting resistance that requires real force to overcome, then breaks through with a decisive click. Simultaneously, a numbered flag pops up in the display window at the top of the register, visible to both cashier and customer, showing the amount just entered. The flags are white with black numbers, and they stand, at attention in their little windows like soldiers awaiting orders. After entering all the amounts, the cashier pulls a large lever on the right side of the machine, and this is when the magic happens. The lever resists at first, requiring a firm pull, then releases with a satisfying mechanical ka-chunk that reverberates through the brass body of the register like a bell being struck. The cash drawer shoots open with force, sliding out on rails with a solid thunk, revealing the compartments inside where bills and coins are sorted and stored. But the sound that matters most, the sound that everyone in the store recognizes and responds to, is the bell. As the drawer opens, a small brass bell mounted inside the register rings out with a clear, bright ding, announcing that a sale has been completed, that money has changed hands, that commerce has occurred. The sound is cheerful, celebratory almost, turning the mundane act of payment into a small public event. This ding punctuates the afternoon at irregular intervals, sometimes several times in quick succession when the store is busy, sometimes with long gaps when business is slow. It becomes part of the soundscape of the drugstore, as familiar as the hiss of the soda fountain or the squeak of the magazine carousel. People notice when they hear it, not consciously perhaps, but some part of their brain registers that the store is functioning, that customers are being served, that the normal rhythms of commerce are proceeding as they should. The drawer itself is divided into compartments, each one sized for a specific denomination. Pennies in the right corner, nickels next to them, then dimes, quarters, and $half. The bill compartments are larger, arranged from left to right in ascending value, 1s, 5s, 10s, 20s. The cashier makes change with practiced efficiency, counting it out into the customer's palm rather than placing it on the counter. A small gesture of respect that also ensures accuracy, both parties can see and verify the amount being transferred. When the transaction is complete, she closes the drawer with a firm push, and it slides back into the body of the register with another solid thunk, locking automatically, secure until the next sale requires it to open again. The whole mechanism is entirely mechanical, no electricity required, no batteries, no computer chips. It is a machine in the truest sense, a device that converts human effort, the press of keys, the pull of the lever, into useful work, the sorting and securing and accounting of money. The register keeps a running total, displayed on a series of wheels visible through small windows on the side of the machine. At the end of each day, the cashier will pull a different lever that prints a paper tape showing every transaction, a permanent record that Mr. Harrison will use to balance the books, to track sales, to understand which products are moving and which are sitting idle. This tape is the drugstore's memory, its official record, more reliable than human recollection, more trustworthy than informal notes. The sound of the register, that bright ding of the bell, that mechanical ka-chunk of the lever, these sounds represent something important beyond their immediate function. They represent fair exchange, honest dealing, the social contract between buyer and seller. They represent the drugstore's viability, its ability to generate enough income to stay open, to keep serving the community. And they represent a kind of transparency, because the register announces each sale publicly, makes commerce audible rather than silent, turns private transactions into small community events witnessed by anyone present. You hear the ding ring out as someone pays for their purchase, and you glance over automatically, curious without quite knowing why. The sound has a Pavlovian quality, trained into you by years of hearing it in stores and associating it with completion, with satisfaction, with the successful conclusion of an exchange. It is a happy sound, and it makes the drugstore feel prosperous, busy, alive. So tonight, as you settle deeper into your blankets, let yourself carry the memory of that afternoon forward. The bell on the door, the cool marble under your hand, the taste of cherry coke and the sound of neighbours talking softly at the counter, the pharmacist in his white coat listening with care, the soda jerk wiping down the marble one more time before closing, all of it ordinary, all of it precious. The people who lived this life did not think they were doing anything remarkable. They were simply showing up day after day to the same counter, the same conversations, the same small rituals that held their communities together. They poured sodas and filled prescriptions and asked after each other's families because that is what you did. That is how you loved your neighbours, not with grand gestures, but with attention, with presence, with the quiet dignity of showing up. And maybe that is the gift we can carry forward from 1955. Not the marble counters or the soda fountains, those are gone, but the spirit behind them, the willingness to slow down, to linger, to see the people around us, to treat a simple errand as an opportunity for connection rather than an obstacle to efficiency, to remember that commerce, at its best, is not just transaction but relationship, and that the most important things we exchange are not goods and services but recognition, care, and the simple comfort of being known. History is not always grand. Sometimes it is just a drugstore on a Wednesday afternoon, a cherry coke, a paper bag, a walk home through golden light, and the quiet understanding that you belonged somewhere, that people knew your name, that the world, for all its imperfections, still had room for you to sit and rest a while. So rest now. Let the warmth of that memory settle over you like the afternoon sun through the drugstore windows. You're safe. You're known. You're home. Good night.